Hello, it's David. I'm back here again with my STE open up here because this is part 2 of my videos on the STE536. That's this little accelerator board that just plugs into the socket on the STE. Clear up here somewhere if you haven't seen part 1 because this will hopefully make a bit more sense if you have. But to summarize, we are picking up at the point where we identified that there were problems with the STE536 and Exxos went away to look into solving them. So what we did in the first episode, we managed to get it built up, had to change the buffers, we got it booting, but we ran into some problems, primarily using the IDE drive and overextended soak testing of the onboard fast memory there. Now, I cut out probably about a week of faffing around with this IDE. This is now using a 44-pin IDE to SD card adapter because that works fine for me. But in general, lots of people use these little CF card adapters. But what took me an absolute age to figure out is that this dot down here does not mean pin 1. Now, I've covered that in the previous video, but I'm emphasizing it now because that was an absolute mess. I couldn't understand why things weren't working properly. They kind of looked like they were working. There was access lights flashing, but no. Totally inverted, other way up. Then it worked perfectly. What didn't help is I didn't trust this card either, and I ended up buying a brand new, something like 40-something gigabyte card from SanDisk, and it didn't work. It wouldn't work on my PC either. Had to send it back, so absolute mess all around there. But we finally got that sorted out. That was booting up, but the minute we tried to run Day of the Tentacle from it, we saw a reboot loop. What happened? Exxos went away, looked into the problems that I saw, and worked out that it was probably related mostly to the clock signal going into the CPU on here. So let's pick up there, and we have a patch board to fit. Okay, so Exxos has gone away and has come up with this little patch board, which he hopes will replaces the oscillator, the main oscillator on the system, and runs at a slightly higher voltage than we're seeing, which he hopes will sort out any of the problems related to potentially missed edges on the clock switching logic. So let's have a go at fixing this. So there we go, just taking that out of the machine, and yeah, that's been running for at least 6 hours, possibly a bit longer, and it's warm. I would say that's barely, just about keep my finger on that, it's probably about 65-70 degrees, so that's entirely reasonable. The ROM's nothing really noticeable there in terms of the temperature on the other ones, so that's all very good. And this is the so there we go. This is the current modification circuit. So that is a fairly low value resistor. I can't think what that is off the top of my head. Is that 100 ohms? And that is basically pulling up the oscillator signal going into the CPLD to hopefully improve its response. So it's a 3.3 volt oscillator. And this is just raising the average voltage a little bit, enough so that both edges, the up and down edges, are detected more reliably. Basically, to break the hysteresis in the built-in Schmitt triggers that are on the oscillator inputs to the CPLD, as I understand it. So I'm going to remove that, and this little patch board should fit in its stead. I think it straddles the capacitor there in some way. Need to have a quick look at the instructions, but first things first, let's get that crowbar resistor off there and give it a try. I think this is just a power rail bypass here, and we'll take that one off. There we go. Yep, so the board sits over there like that. This end of the cap needs to be soldered to this pad. There's one patch wire that runs up to that side of that little resistor up there, and this patch wire goes to the middle of this selectable jumper, so I did not need to retain that that bridge. Take that off first. Going to sit that over there like so. Get ourselves a little bit of a bit of flux involved. And a great big bucket of solder. To flood onto this pad to anchor up what I presume is the ground. It's not anchoring very well. There we go. Okay, so dob of flux on the center, dob of flux on that pad, a little bit of solder on the iron, quite a lot of solder on the iron actually. And let's try and introduce this end. There we go. I'll do this with my fingers. That's really gobbling up my solder. There we go. I believe it's meant to be something like that. Allow me to commend to you the sponsor of this video, PCBWay. Now, as the name suggests, they are a PCB manufacturing company, but they also do PCB assembly, PCB design consultancy, sheet metal fabrication, CNC machining, 3D printing, and they have an extensive library of shared projects contributed by their users. There's also a module store where whole items can be purchased pre-made. If you think any of these maker-centric services could be of interest to you, please do have a look at their website. I thank them very much for supporting my work. Okay, so let's try and slot this back into position, bearing in mind that I haven't taken everything completely apart. There we go. I've actually flashed the firmware already, so that is what it ought to be. And I don't actually have an IDE drive in right this second, on account of me doing some work actually imaging my disk, so that's not available right this second. But I want to make sure there's no magic smoke, and I want to make sure that something appears on the screen. So well, first of all, let's have a look at this, and then I'll scroll up to the screen. I don't have the capture working at the moment because I'm in high res mode, so I just have to have a look at the screen. Right, but I'm going to look for smoke, I'm going to look for cutouts, I'm going to look for this green light. Okay, don't smell anything. Looks like we've got flashing over there. Yep, and we've got something on the screen. Okay, mouse is moving, desktop's loading. I've got a... oh, the mouse is just frozen. That's interesting. Maybe because I've got the keyboard at a funny angle. Perhaps I've lost power briefly. Never mind, we can use the keyboard for now. So what I'm looking for at the moment is just basically failures when doing the TT-RAM test. This is all from floppy for the time being. But good. give that a thumbs up for the time being, and we will, well, we're going to do a bit of a soak test now. And when I get the hard disk back in here, I will I'll do some more general purpose, just general use testing, and make sure that we don't get any more lockups. Okay, well, here we are the next day, and unfortunately that didn't last very long. That glee that I had with running the RAM tester, it packed up pretty rapidly, and then rebooting, just the problem manifested earlier and earlier. Pardon me, my voice gone there. But it may just be that I left it too little time between soldering up that patch board and actually booting up. So I'm trying again now. So we've got a cold start now. Nothing's going to be too hot, and we'll let it run, and we'll see whether we get a repeat behaviour. One thing I do know, I was meant to remove the capacitor from the 030 clock input chip, so I do still need to do this. So if this hangs up, we'll have this out, and I'll take that capacitor off. Okay, so that's been running for about 20 minutes, and it's just frozen up. Okay, let's get rid of this cap. I've had a little look around the soldering job I've done here on the board, and I don't think it's too bad. It is quite sticky. I perhaps didn't do the world's greatest job of cleaning it. This isn't working. Is that a ground plane? That maybe is ground, isn't it? Let me boost the old iron up to 320. This should be a very straightforward desoldering job normally. What I've done, by the way, is I've taken this screw out here off from the floppy disk, just to give me a little bit of wiggle room while still allowing the floppy disk to be mounted. This is obviously not a long-term solution, and I know for the next revision of the boards, Exxos has moved this connector slightly, which should improve things, but for now that will do. I still don't have any IDE in there at the minute, so we're just off floppy for now. Although I am nearly finished with my rework of my SD card. Right, let's bring up the capture. Give that a go. There we go, on boot from drive B. Don't have a disk in drive A, that's the only reason. Let's go to medium res. I prefer to do this in high res, but I can't get the capture to work with high res, because obviously it's not. I've got a VGA to HDMI adapter, but it's obviously not strictly accurate VGA timings, so it doesn't work basically. Kind of works sometimes. Okay, so off we go again. Let's just let's let that run. Well, I'm very pleased to say that that actually has worked brilliantly. The testing was ran as long as I could leave it for. I had a good 5-6 hours on there. I've been using it on and off for a few days, and I haven't had a single crash since performing that mod. So I'm very happy to say that I think actually this particular configuration is now stable. Just ran the quick memory test here. We're back into high res mode, so I'm afraid I have to show you the screen, but I prefer it for fitting things on the screen. So I've just done a quick memory speed test here. This is the normal speed you get from ST-RAM, no change there really, even with the instruction cache. I've got a feeling instruction cache is disabled for access to ST-RAM. Not 100% sure on that, but I think there might be a firmware decision. Whereas with the TT-RAM, there we go, we can see we're getting, ignore the yeah, there is no level 2 cache, so ignore the level 2 cache. Level 1 cache, that's obviously the onboard cache. Don't know why we've got a low write figure on there, but you can see that you get 30 megabytes per second off the the layer 1 cache, and 16 sustained through to the or through from the main RAM, which is 4 times faster, and write speed coming in at a best part of 30 megabytes per second. To me, that's a little bit suspicious. I would be expecting figures up in the 35 megabyte per second region for the TT RAM there, for the reading. Even this seems a little bit low to me. So I don't know whether this particular firmware has actually just got a bit of a go slow on to get the stability up, or whether actually that's just a quirk of the way that the accelerator performs, that mem speed is a little bit off. When I run the by the way, I've now finished imaging my IDE drive, so this is basically now a copy of my Falcon's drive, but with some additional partitions on the end. So this has got NVDI installed, and we should be able to boot to Mint as well in a minute. But when I do the AltRAM access on here, I think I'm getting about 850%. Yeah, there we go, which is probably actually what I was expecting. So I don't know where that sort of 400% figure came from. It's a little bit odd. Maybe that's got something to do with MapROM. Because I'm running MapROM. So we don't have an FPU. That might be MapROM. Let's try that again without MapROM. So integer vision is up there at 17 times normal, 1.82 seconds. That's the key figure that I'm interested in there. That is the same as on my DFB1, so that means that we are performing correctly at 50 megahertz. I do have MapROM installed on this, and what MapROM does is it is like shadowing the BIOS, and you'd have on a PC motherboard, an old PC motherboard. So it is copying the ROM into this fast RAM and then using the MMU to access it. And you see you get this 800% figure for ROM access. But I wonder if that messes with the mem speed. That could very well be that. Let's just give that a try. So we'll go into our auto folder here, and let's get rid of MapROM. I wonder if I have to do a cold boot. Oh, let's do a cold boot. So this is running emutos off the flash. There we go. So we should see noticeably slower ROM performance now. Let's give that a quick test. I might have to edit some of this out because I think this can possibly take a minute or two. There we go, just shy of a minute. There we go, that's got the 130%, so it is faster than normal. I think I said flash earlier on. It's not running off flash, it's running off an EEPROM, but it is potentially, it can do a lot faster than that natively. I think we saw 480 earlier on, but it's been slowed down for this stability work. So okay, there we go, with a so that means that the MapROM is not running, is basically what I'm trying to prove there. So then we can try this mem speeds test again and see whether we get more results more in line with what we'd expect. The reason why I think it could be MapROM, oh yeah, look, there we go. The reason why I think it could be MapROM is because it then gets the MMU involved, which means there's a lookup on memory accesses, potentially all the memory accesses. I don't think we saw any level 1 cache boost on the memory read previously, did we? So I think immediately we're going to see an improvement. This is closer to what I was expecting. So I think, yeah, that MapROM does have an overhead. So it swings around about. Do you want a faster ROM, or do you want faster accesses in general? I think I'd take the faster accesses because if you're using NVDI, you know, there's not a lot of stuff running from ROM anyway. So there we go. Level 1 cache, 47. That's very good. The write shouldn't really have much difference. It doesn't. 30 through and read 30. I think technically the write could be a little bit quicker, but it's a small amount. Like you might be able to get sort of like 41 or something like that. I think. Going from memory. I think this is when I was experimenting with DFB1. But anyway, there we go. That's much more realistic figures. That's what I wanted to see. Yeah, let's boot into Mint, which in my Falcon's installation I've got on drive G. So I just changed to drive G to boot from there when There we go. When we come up. And what I'm a little bit worried about is that this is obviously the installation for my Falcon, and I think quite a few things on here require an FPU, which this doesn't have. And Anders Granlund has an excellent FPU-MU TSR program, but it does not, I believe, work with Mint. I think context switching is a bit of an issue with it. So this is lovely, and it works very nicely, and we can do all of our normal multitasking things at 100 miles an hour, and it is very snappy. I'll say yes, it is very nice with what's it called, with NVDI running. Yeah, and everything's, oh yeah, Gebench is not very multitasking friendly. Not really intended to be either, so fair enough. So let's kill it from the task manager. In fact, let's have a quick look at the task manager. There we go, memory free. Yep, we've got 65 megabytes of fast RAM, 60 megabytes of it free, and virtually all of the STE memory is free because we're using fast RAM all the way. That's why it's very snappy. That's nice. And what else can we look at there? There's the system. There we go. Let's have a look. So we've got 645.1, yeah, Atari, MMU, FPU, none, yeah, clocking 40. Okay, so it's got it at about 48 megahertz. It's 50 with a program score of 12.05. That's a good point. Shall we run the core mark test? Where have I put that? I think that's in drive C. There we go. Now this is obviously a little bit unfair because we're in a multitasking environment, but I think my core mark was somewhere around, I can't remember now, I want to say 20, but I might be misremembering that wildly, and it might only be 5 or something. I'll try and put an overlay up here. This is on DFB1 I'm talking about. Let's see how it goes on here. Oh, there we go, 14.1, so maybe 20 was about right, or maybe it's 15. 14.1, but obviously we are multitasking, so that's going to be better than that. I think we've got a dry stones test somewhere here, although they always seem to vary, so you have to be careful you compare like for like. So dry stones per second, 11261. That seems a funny figure. Is that about right? I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, lines. We get the idea. Right, so what I was saying was I would like to download, I think, an updated version of Mint and get that installed. So, well, the obvious thing to do is to go online. So tucked away down here in the cartridge port of my STE is my Hydra network adapter. This is a single board upgrade of the old Ethernet adapter, and it's one behind the latest Net USB, which has the same thing on here, but with also some USB functionality. And this should let us get on the net with Mint quite easily. Okay, so since this is my Falcon, copy of my Falcon's drive, and I use this card on the Falcon, I should just be able to run my network script and bring up the network. Yep, it's even set the date for me. Lovely. So let's try. Well, obviously worked. It set the date. There we go. So network's up and running. The trick then will be to go to Torsten's Mint snapshots downloads page, which has a complete bootable snapshot. We should be able to replace some of, yeah, where are we? We're in 119.76b, but I think we've only got 030, yeah, so the 030 version of Mint and all the tools that compiled with it assume an FPU. This is a limitation of the tool chain, so it's best to get the 68,000 straight 68,000 one. So let's go there and download the latest 68,000 version of Mint, and we'll do it using cab. I think, where's cab? There we go. That's not bad. I wonder if we can get images in black and white. Monochrome. Yeah. Yeah. Try that. I think I last did this on DSTV1, and it was a bit slower. Yeah, maybe the yeah, maybe they don't work properly on in mono. Oops, that's not the button. That's not what I was expecting to happen. There we go. Right, so how do we do this now? Been a long time. No, I thought I clicked there. Let's just go open URL. So HTTP, and we have to hope it doesn't support HTTPS here because that's an FPU based thing. So let's go directly to snapshots. Does that work? It does. Okay. Freemint. There we go. This is quite snappy. Bootable versions. I don't know what the rest of the bootable and per CPU is, but let's go for bootable. Sounds better. Freemint latest 02060. No. Freemint latest. There we go. That's what we want. Freemint latest 000STSTE.zip. And we're still formatting the text at the moment, so maybe I should let that complete. Maybe I'll stop it with escape. Yep. Okay. So what's this? 9.1 megabytes. This might, I was going to say this might take some time, but look at this. Wow. That's not bad for TCP/IP on a 1980s computer. That's flying. Basically 60 kilobytes per second. That's like that's nearly half a megabit, isn't it? That's not bad from a ROM port, a hacked ROM port 8-bit network interface. Wow. There we go. Let's try to save it to decab. No, probably best we put it in our download directory. Yeah, save it there. Home, downloads. Oops. Like, come on, there we go. Freemint latest, there we go. Today, 9.5 megabytes. Right, so we okay. Let's extract that. Is it going to be? Let's have a look. Is it unzip minus L to list? Just see if it's going to be. Yeah, it is. It's going to be a zip bomb. So make. I should have a RAM disk. Let's do the RAM disk. There we go. Right, unzip. Downloads. Freemint. And again, this might take a couple of minutes. It's still what, early 90s technology. It's not as slick. You'd have to say this is not as slick as the mid 90s. In the mid 90s, I was using at university. I'd have had Windows 3.1 machines, and I've had old classic Macs, and it's the same sort of era as the old classic Macs, but that was more slick. I mean, the OS is very powerful here, Mint, but I mean, obviously this is a homebrew operating system. And I don't think GEM ever had the love and attention that the that Mac OS, certainly Mac OS 6, Mac OS 7 had. So it's not quite as slick, but it's certainly got all the features, hasn't it? And the performance would have been a lot better than those old classic Macs that I would have used for. We basically used them for telnet terminals back in 1996, 7, something like that. Okay, there we go. So, what does this upgrade require, and can I actually do it in situ? so drive G is my boot drive. Perhaps if I just, well, I was going to say, maybe if I just rename these and I just start from scratch. But that might be a bad idea. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. No, it's not going to let me rename that one. Fair enough. So I want to disable this mint. Yeah, not a long file name, I didn't mean that. Getting used to my old ones. Right, so we're going to go from RAM disk. Added auto, yep, we've got a new mint, there it is. Then we're going to have, okay, yep, a new folder. Okay, so it's fine, they won't clash. One, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh yeah. Skip. I suspect that's a mistake. Don't think that's meant to be 9 characters in that zip file. There we go. All of my favourite things are back again. I've got Atari Works linked. I never had Atari Works back in the day, but this would have been quite nice actually. How do I open a new one? A bit of a screen update issue there. Atari Works, new spreadsheet. Yes, there we go. Aha. Whoa! Look at the zoom. Yeah, let's go down. Should we try 8 point? Still pretty tiny. Okay. They've had such thing as fill down. Okay, no. Well, yeah, but it worked like it did in 1990s. That +1. So you had to do like that and then do fill down. Last cell to fill. Let's go to A10. Do you want to continue? Yeah. Ah, there we go. And that's equal to that. What's power, do you reckon? No. That? Maybe. Fill down to 10. Yes. Oh, this would have been pretty good back in the day. I wonder if it can do graphing at all. Chart. Here we go. Yeah, I want a scattergram, really. Yeah. I don't know what that's drawing, but the fact that it can, I'm pretty impressed actually. Never used it. Never used it when I was back in the 90s. What a shame. Anyway, look at that. There we go. Aren't we pleased with this? I'm very pleased with this. Now, I mentioned how I thought that probably Mac OS 6 and Mac OS 7 were a little bit more polished than Gem back in the day, as I used those at university. I think somewhere around here, I don't think that's the one. Here we go. I've got my Basilisk install from my Falcon, and that only requires 030 and fast RAM to work, and I believe I have access to an 030 and fast RAM. So let's have a look. Disk Mac HD.disk. Yes. So yeah, okay. I think this might work. So 68030, yeah, FPU none available, maximum RAM, yeah, fine. You can configure that in the file, but I don't think it works here. Don't think you can configure the disks here either. Not going to bother with sound, native only, log off. Yep, let's give it a go. They always said that the fastest Mac, well, that's not true. You hear a lot that the fastest Mac was an Amiga. Well, the ST was faster than the Amiga, and it did it first. So the fastest Mac in 1985 was an ST. This looks pretty fast. The round corners even work. Look at that. Oh, yes. Unfortunately, I don't think I have much on here that will work with a mono monitor. Gosh, I hope this Moire pattern's not too terrible on here. I wonder if I can do any post-processing. So here, look at this. This is all the stuff that I play with over on the Falcon. What's the new games? Let's have a look. Harpoon 2 Pirates, F1 Stealth Fighter. No. Can we do something a bit more simple? Shuffle puck. Okay, what does shuffle puck do then? Runs in mono anyway. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. It's air hockey, I suppose. Whoa. Oh, that's a pity. Okay, never mind. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's a text adventure, I think, isn't it? Yeah, no, this doesn't particularly require a yeah, this doesn't particularly require a fancy Mac, does it? I want to quit. Do you wish to leave the game? Yes. You sound rather... Oh, for goodness sake. It does this. Yes. Quit. Pull your power center, hit return when you're ready. Okay. Do you wish to leave the game? Yes, I do. Thank you. Oregon Trail? Oregon Color and Oregon Trail. Okay. I don't know this game. I've seen it on here, but I've never tried it. Hello, Helen Zheng, or whatever your name is. The Oregon Trail. Is that that's a rattlesnake? Yeah, it doesn't go great in my... The fact there were mono games for the Mac is impressive, because the early Macs didn't have any color screens. So if you want to sell a game, you had to do it mono. You didn't get mono games for the ST. There were a few, but it was not that many. If you bought an ST with a mono monitor, you weren't playing games. Independence, Missouri. Ah. This looks worth getting into, but I think now is not the time. Ah. No, come on. No, I don't know what I'm doing. Quit. No. Should we do a benchmark? I think we should do a benchmark. Not just tools, applications, that's what I want. Speedometer, here we go. This is the stuff. So this, I believe, lets us compare the speed versus an original 8 megahertz classic Mac. In fact, was it 8 megahertz? It might even have been slower. I can't remember. There we go.
Right, main performance test. Let's have a look. Mac Classic is 1.0 and it's got us at 9 times a Mac Classic. So, don't know what that means. Okay, 11 times, nearly 12 times the CPU. Okay, the disk has let us down there. The emulator disk. This is a disk image, of course. In my Falcon, I did have it configured to have its own partition, but I didn't copy that partition over here, so it's just using the image. That's quite impressive. 15 times speed up on the maths, and it doesn't even have an FPU. Graphics 8 and a bit. Okay, that's pretty good. Happy with that. So here's the Drystons. This has got 9,500. I'm trying to think what that one we ran earlier on was. Was that 11,000? So okay, we've lost a little bit in the emulation. That's fair enough. 9.9 times rating. The Whetstones. That's I think Whetstones is an FPU unit, isn't it? So there we go. Yep, we're at 18, 19 times. Impressive. 9 times, 11 times. Bubble salt 14. Lovely old stuff, but a lot of this is quite floating point heavy, isn't it? Yeah, it would really benefit from the old floating point unit. Average of, yeah, so 12.7 times faster. And obviously we don't have colour, so that doesn't make much sense. And we are twice as good on the Mac 2 equals 1 here. Twice as good on the old graphics test. So lovely old job. And the best thing about this nice bit of modern software, again written by Anders Granlund with the 536 in mind. Why is that not closing? There we go. You can shut down and go back to, he says, failure to shut that. Oh, there's something open. Speedometer still open. Quit. Can't machine is on, so save before quitting. No. Yeah, you can shut down and go back to where you were, which was, well, running Microsoft Atari Works a minute ago. I'm really happy with this. This is behaving beautifully now. Ah, it's a delight.
So while I have to say that I'm very, very impressed with the behaviour there under Gem and Mint in particular, I think we ought to address the elephant in the room, which is compatibility. Putting a 68030 into an ST is not going to do you a lot of good for playing games. Now, in the Amiga scene, they've been dealing with this for a lot longer, and they have WHD load. We don't really have the same sort of thing going on with the Atari series, at least not anywhere near to the same depth of patched games to work with it. I have done a quick modification to the STE, which I will put into a different video. I may link it up here, although it might come out after this video. So what are the ways that our accelerator here can interfere with game compatibility? Well, there's a number. The first off, it's a 68030. Now, it behaves slightly differently in certain circumstances to a 68000. There are certain games, for example, that for some reason trigger a bus error. If you trigger a bus error on a 68000, the offset that you need to jump back to is of one length, and on 030 it is a longer frame. So to extract the information as where you came from, you simply, it doesn't work. You need to know that you're on an 030 and then work out where to jump. And some games suffer from that. Got an example of Shuttle. For some reason, Shuttle, which is a game that you think would benefit from having a really fast processor, faster memory, for some reason generates bus error. So, I mean, I've had a go at patching it. I'm not showing the patched version here. Then runs into other problems because you don't know how many places this occurs in the game. You could be playing it, and then, you know, I don't know, mission 16, it fails. So that's a pity. If somebody wants to spend the time on that, I'd be really grateful. But there's an example where just the architecture of the processor is different, and you then see failures. So another one's acceleration. Some games simply run too fast. Midwinter's an example of that, although for some reason I can't get it even booting here. But it's just too quick. Certain flight simulators will just fly far too quickly, or the warning lights will flash far too rapidly because they're not really decoupled from real time. This is running something like 20 times faster than a stock ST, so if there's no regulation on the speed of the game using the VSync counter or something like this to get smoother play, what you get is just faster play, which is possibly not what you want. The AltRAM, hardly anything that is not a gem-based modern program or a modern game built recently, I should say, understands the concept of AltRAM. So this is what in the Amiga world they call fast RAM. So it's memory that's only accessible by the processor, and it can be done very quickly. Can be run at full speed. The DMA subsystem doesn't speak to it, so you can't use it for showing the screen, and you can't load from floppy or hard disk directly into it. So special provisions required, and if a program allocates into AltRAM and it doesn't know what it is, it just won't work. I think we might have seen an example with Flight of the Intruder, where to all intents and purposes the game seems to work except some graphics are corrupted. I don't know whether that's coming out of AltRAM. That's a bit strange. One way around that is you boot into a version of TOS that isn't modified to declare AltRAM. That might improve compatibility, but the version the board comes with here also declares AltRAM, and so if a game just allocates and doesn't ask, you may see problems. So this is one of the reasons why you just see Frontier running all of the time when people do accelerator builds for the ST series. It's one of the very few games which, by happy accident, runs happily with AltRAM. Basically allocates a static screen buffer at a fixed address, which is in the first 1 megabyte of ST-RAM, and then anything else the program can load from anywhere else and therefore execute more quickly. It's just good fortune, really. It doesn't appear to be by design. But what it is also restricted by the vertical blank, as in the timing is based on how many VSync pulses, interrupts, basically vertical blank interrupts, the game sees. So it runs slightly faster in a 60 Hz region than a 50 Hz region, but that's why the frame counter in front bench here needs to be compensated for that. But but what it does mean is the game plays more smoothly rather than simply faster. And this is something, a patch that could be applied to other games. I'm sure if people are particularly good at reverse engineering, it's something that I hope that I can have a little bit of a tinker with in the future. I actually got into hardware to learn how to, basically to have the ability to work on the software side. Sadly, I still haven't finished with hardware. I've got lots of hardware projects that I'd like to complete. But yeah, actually getting the software to work with modern hardware was one of the things that I was interested in originally. So what I'd be really interested in is people's feedback. Can you suggest games that work well with an 030, with acceleration, and with AltRAM? Maybe we should start compiling a list. I know people have said this many times, but somewhere like Atari Forum would be an excellent place to start building up games that benefit from this. I managed to get F-19 Stealth Fighter running with accelerated on the accelerator, and that seemed to be decoupled to real time. It seemed to work really well. Tried to replicate it here for the video, can't make it work. So perhaps that's the hack I've done to the floppy disk. I'm not 100% sure. I'd like to see us having a list of games that have been patched or natively work with the accelerator. And if anyone's got any suggestions, please put them in the comments down below. If somebody would like to start making a list, then please again put it in the comments down below and I'll pin it. So this has been a really long haul to get to the point where we are now, with my STE working nicely at 50 megahertz with the 64 megabytes of additional RAM in there and the 030 chugging away. But yes, it is still very much a work in progress. So if you are interested in one of these, it's not yet available for order, but you can register your interest on the Exxos forum, and basically the first batch that gets built in anger, you can get your name allocated against one of those. So do please go and have a look at that. Sorry it's been such a marathon, but I hope to see you again next time.